Hello my loves, I am back to tell you some spooky stories that I have found on the subreddit r/paranormal. I also have my own subreddit r/spooksmissions that anyone can post on to have their stories read here. In this video I will be reading the stories from Kahuna DC3. Let's get into the stories. This happened years ago, but still gives me chills when I think about it or tell it. My PawPaw, Doug, died in January of 98, and my little brother was born in December of 98. They've never known each other. My family lived on some land owned by PawPaw. In fact, all his children did. 3 houses, side by side, walking distance to each other. Starting with our house, it was his middle child, my dad, in a newly built modular home. The middle house, where my PawPaw and Nana lived and raised their children, was given later to his youngest daughter and her family. The last house is where his oldest daughter lived, with her family. We were all somewhat tight-knit growing up. Around the summer of 99, during a family barbecue and bonfire, ghost stories started being told for the kids. I heard my mom say to my aunts that she needed to speak with them during this time. They went inside to get more marshmallows, and I followed, saying I had to use the bathroom. I didn't, I was just nosy. I sat there with the door cracked, and I heard my mom asking them questions about my PawPaw, like what kind of cologne he wore, and did he have any distinct stance and posture, and would he have liked my little brother if they had met. They answered all her questions, and I could tell something was off with my mom afterwards. A few days later, on the way home from an outing with my mom, I asked her why she was questioning my aunts over the weekend. Her answer legit scared me, but also kickstarted my love of the paranormal. She said that at least once a week, the toilet in my parents' bathroom would flush on its own, and when she would go check, obviously no one was there, but she smelled cigarette smoke and manly cologne. My PawPaw died of lung cancer from smoking. The lights would even flip on and off by themselves in the bathroom. She proceeded to tell me that occasionally she would wake up and my little brother would be in his crib, laughing, and she'd see this shadow figure standing hunched over his crib. It never scared her. She said it was an almost calming presence. Fast forward a couple of years later, and my mom is driving me and my siblings to the park for a family fun day. On the way there, off to the right, this massive cemetery where my PawPaw is buried. As we pass by it, my little brother, who is in the back seat, starts laughing and waving towards the cemetery. I ask him what he's doing, and his reply stopped us all in the middle of our convos. Keep in mind, he never once met our grandfather, or even knew his name other than PawPaw. He said, "That's where PawPaw Doug sleeps." We ask him, "How do you know that? And how do you know his name?" And my brother replies, "Because he would play with me in my crib when I was a baby. He told me his name was Doug, like my daddy and my brother." Now my dad goes by DC, and I go by my nickname, Trey. Not once during this time did my brother ever know our real names. He only knew Daddy and Trey. Talk about chills running down my spine. Every time we passed that cemetery, my brother would smile and wave and say, "Hey PawPaw Doug." Every word of this is totally true, and one of my many paranormal things that I have experienced. I have plenty of stories to share, and I probably will at some point. That is freaking so cute, and I know you have more stories because I'm reading them here, and I'm really excited to read them, but that is just the absolute cutest. The next story is titled, Another PawPaw Experience. If you read my last post, this is a minor continuation of that involving my little brother and grandfather. You don't have to read the previous one, but it gives some context to this one. These are details that were not included in the previous post. To catch you up to this experience, my parents are divorced and my mom moved away, during which she gives birth to my youngest brother. I lived with my dad for a while, but our differences led me to moving out. I am now the oldest of my 4 siblings. Me, my sister, little brother from previous post, and my baby brother. After a couple years of couch surfing, I moved in with my mom to get back on my feet for better job opportunities. My little brother follows suit a few years later and moves in with us. Now to the experience. About 6 years ago, I was working as a security guard for a country club community in NC. The job entailed that I spent half of the shift at the main gate and the other half roving or patrolling the streets in our security vehicles. I worked the weekends, night shift, and I was thriving well. I had a little extra income, so I thought I would treat myself to something I always wanted given my passion for all things paranormal. So I bought myself a Ouija board. My brothers and I all share an interest in paranormal and occult, all things horror-based, basically. When I bought the Ouija board, all three were pretty excited and played a couple times. Due to the rules of the game, what we were contacting and the answers received, I told them both to never touch it without my permission, or while I was at work. Of course they didn't listen. So one night I'm working, roving, and my phone starts blowing up. Because I'm patrolling, I can't answer until I get to a safe spot to stop. When I do, I check my phone and see a lot of missed calls from both my brothers and my mom. I call them back and they are frantic, saying, "Please be careful on your way home tonight," and "We think something bad is going to happen to you." I just dismissed everything they were saying, but asked why they were worrying so much because I'm just at work. Then they reveal that my mom wanted to try the Ouija board and pulled it out to play. I get angry because they knew my rules. After berating them for a bit, I asked a few questions. "What did you ask?" Brother 1 asked, "Is anyone that lives in the house in danger?" The board said yes, and spelled out your name. I asked, "What else did you ask?" Brother 2 asked, "Is Trey going to die soon, and how?" I said, "And?" Brother 1 responded, "It said in the AM and in a car wreck." I asked, "Did you ask how it knew?" Brother 2 said, "We did, but I'll let Brother 1 explain." Brother 1 said, "Dude, sit down if you're not already." So we asked, "Who are we speaking to?" And it responds, "Guard, an angel." We assume it means guardian angel. We ask for its name, and it responds, "Doug." We then ask where he stays in the house, and it says, "With Trey and closet." I respond, "Well, that's nice. Y'all know I love PawPaw Doug, so it's comforting to know he's there." Bro 1 responded, "Just wait, dude." We then asked if he's a good spirit, and a bunch of times it kept going no. We asked if it was evil, and it kept answering yes. We said it needed to leave, and if it's not PawPaw, we said it needed to leave. If it's not PawPaw, but it kept repeating no, 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 and then spelling Trey die, Trey die, and then spelling Trey die, Trey die. So we ended the session and put the board away. After taking in the info, I asked if they ended it the correct and proper way. My baby brothers said no. It scared them too much and they wanted it to be over. This angers me, again, because it is exactly what I presumed would happen, and they would unleash something in the house. Funny enough, my baby brother had nightmares for a couple of months, and my younger brother had issues with his body, random pains that would last a few days, and even unknown scratches and welts. I was completely unharmed and never got into a car wreck or anything. However, I have experienced a few unexplainable occurrences in my room. One night, I was laying in bed, surfing the web, and I heard 3 banging knocks on my door. I went to check, and no one was there, and everybody was in bed, asleep. This happens twice that night, and one more time a couple weeks later. The other experiences were when I would be falling asleep, and I hear a male voice scream, "Trey," into my ear, enough to jolt me awake. I could even feel the vibrations inside my ear, like a ticklish sensation. It happened quite a few times, but I always chalked it up to my PawPaw Doug, or at least what I thought was him. Oh my goodness, that is so scary. It sounds like something bad, seeing PawPaw Doug interact with you, and then trying to convince you it was PawPaw, so it could do something bad, or maybe just scare you? Their next story is titled, My and Our Most Recent Haunting. Now this is exactly what the title says. For some context, it includes myself and my brother. For some context, it includes myself and my brother from the previous posts, and later his wife. In 2022, my brother and I moved out of our mom's house and got a place of our own. It was a single wide trailer about 10 minutes away from where our mom lived. It was my first time being on my own-ish. There wasn't anything fancy about this place, just a typical trailer, but the storm door sticks out occasionally and makes a loud squeaking noise when opening and shutting. So whenever someone is coming or going, you'll definitely know. My brother worked at a pest control company, so his hours were all over. Sometimes he'd be home early, other times he'd work very late. So this left me to make sure we had food to eat, which I didn't mind because I love to cook. Something about it just calms me. Anyways, one particular night my brother was working late, so I made dinner, chicken wings and a mixture of onion rings and potato wedges. I had finished everything before he even made it home. Whenever I cook, I usually don't immediately eat. I've always been like this, I don't know why. On this occasion, I decided to have a smoke. I went out onto the back porch to smoke my cigarette. There's a window there where I can see into the kitchen from the back porch. But the blinds were shut, but I left the light on in the kitchen. As I'm smoking, I hear the loud storm door and then footsteps inside. So I look towards the window and I see a shadow walking through the kitchen. Not really thinking anything about it, I assume it's my brother. I finish my cigarette and head inside so I can let him know dinner was cooked and waiting in the oven. However, I notice his bedroom door is still shut and the light isn't on. He normally leaves it open when he gets home, or if he's on the phone, he'll shut it, but the light would be on. So I just pop my head in, and he isn't there. I walk throughout the trailer, my back towards the bathroom and my room, but again, he isn't there. I open the front door, and his truck wasn't even in the driveway. I wasn't exactly scared, more confused. But I do get this uneasy feeling, because I know I heard the door and saw someone or something walk past the window. I searched the place again, hoping to not run into an intruder. But nothing. I was completely alone. My brother pulled up about 30 minutes later. I'm sitting in the living room and he noticed my confused demeanor. He asks what's wrong, and I tell him what happened. He then tells me he sometimes sees a shadow in the trailer, but always believed it to be me, until he realized I'm in bed. I have no idea what or who it could be. A few weeks later, I was home, looking after my niece. I leave tiny bags of chips on the counter, separated by brands, but in neat rows, so she can grab one whenever she wants a snack. She happened to be down for a nap, so I took the time to clean up. The counter is directly behind me, perpendicular to where I was standing. As I was washing dishes, I hear a light crumble and turn around expecting to see my niece standing there with a bag of chips. Instead, I see a bag on the floor, about 3 feet away from the counter, and she was still napping where I left her, in the same position I left her in, undisturbed. Again, I'm just uneasy and totally confused. I didn't bump them, they were a good distance away, and the air from the ceiling fans weren't on. The doors and windows were shut, so no breeze or drafts either. The chips weren't piled or thrown willy-nilly on the counter, and when they are neat on the counter, there's a 1.5 foot gap of countertop space between the chips and the counter's edge. So no way it could have fallen off, much less end up 3 feet away in the middle of the floor. We've heard from the previous tenant and landlord that for some years before, an elderly lady had gotten sick and passed away in there. Maybe it was her? I moved out the following year because my brother had met a girl and got her pregnant. She needed a place to move to because of her own issues, and I was ousted, which I didn't like but eventually came to terms with. They would occasionally come by and tell us of spooky things that were still happening in the trailer. She would see shadows too. They both would hear the footsteps inside when they were outside. Voices and giggling would be heard by one of them while the other was not home. Sometimes the kitchen cabinets would be open when they woke up. Random stuff would go missing, only to find it elsewhere in the home. She always thought maybe it was just her pregnancy brain, until one night they were on the couch watching TV. My brother always puts his work boots by the front door. They said they heard a scuffing sound, so they mute the TV, and one of his boots just flies into view and hits the wall by the TV. He said they both jumped and turned the TV off and ran to the bedroom to go to bed. The next morning, when he's leaving work, the boot is back by the front door, but not in its normal position. He said it was like something just threw it back towards the door. My brother and sister-in-law always got creepy vibes while there afterwards, and didn't like to invite people over because they didn't want to look crazy or have anything spooky happen. They finally moved out in August of 2024. You have such a haunted life. Oh my goodness, this is so fun to read. If you have more stories, please, I need to know them. Please tell me. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all the people who let me read their stories here. Remember to like the video, comment, and follow me if you want to see more. Please tell me the spookiest thing that has ever happened to you. If you want me to read your story in my next video, please post it in my Reddit r/spooksmissions. I will see you in my next video. Good night, pumpkin.